And now just briefly, church and state, the unit that we just began on Tuesday, right? We'll start with, the three subsections: establishment clause versus the free exercise clause, the Lemon test, and then the school prayer cases that we read, right? Okay, so first, right, start with the text as always, our first tool, right? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, right? Remember, we're trying to protect freedom of religion from two angles. That's what's going on here, right? So we have the establishment clause, right? Which is basically saying government cannot endorse any religion. It cannot sponsor a particular religion. It cannot promote a particular religious agenda. Then we have the free exercise clause, which is basically saying that government cannot restrict your ability to worship, right? It can't get in the way of your freedom to worship or whatever God you want in whatever way you want, right? And of course the purpose, right, is, here we have the cheesy bumper sticker again, right? The purpose of freedom of religion, we all need to get along, right? The only way that our founders thought that we'd be able to kind of coexist would be if everybody's religious beliefs were protected, right? So we know that when we're talking about the establishment clause in particular, not the free exercise clause, the establishment clause, the one that says government cannot endorse religion, we have the Lemon test, right? And the Lemon test has 3 parts. And what are those 3 parts?
Secular effect, secular purpose, and excessive entanglement.
Perfect, right? Perfect, right? So exactly as Robert said, right? The question that we ask, the court must ask is, does the government, in whatever practice it is that it's engaging in, and we're asking whether or not that violates the establishment clause, the way that we answer that is we say, does the government have a secular purpose? And then does it have a secular effect? Right? Does it intend to be secular? And then is it actually secular? Do people interpret the act as secular? And then does the act avoid excessive entanglement of government with religion? Right? Great. So that's the easy test. You all should know that, be able to apply it on your exams. And then we have the school prayer cases, which really get into establishment clause jurisprudence in schools, right? In students' rights. So we talked about Engel, right? This was school prayer in elementary schools, not okay, the Supreme Court says, right? Justice Black says the Establishment Clause is violated by the enactment of laws which establish an official religion, whether those laws operate directly to coerce non-observing individuals or not, right? So this is basically, the purpose, right? A secular purpose. He's saying school prayer does not have a secular purpose. Remember, Engel happened before Lemon, so they're not applying the Lemon test in this case, but basically the reasoning is the same, right? You need to have a secular purpose, you need to have the secular effect, and you need to avoid excessive entanglement. Engel says school prayer, not okay, right? Levy-Weissman, right? 1992, several years later. In this case, they do apply the Lemon test, right? And what do they end up saying here? The issue, right, is the graduation prayer, right? We're at a Providence High School. They invite a rabbi to come speak at the graduation. Parents challenge it. What does the court say? Leah, what does the court say in Levy-Weissman?
That you can't have a religious speaker even at a public event that might have unintentional secular religious effect.
Exactly, right. It might have an unintentional secular effect. It doesn't matter if these students that it's a graduation and not a classroom. It's still the Establishment Clause kicks in, and this prayer at a graduation violates it, right? Remember the dissent in that case, right? Rehnquist, what did he say? Tradition, right? We've always had prayer at graduation. We've always had religious invocations. It's not secular. It's not religious, right? It's ceremonial deism, he called it, right? This is the term in your book. The idea being, this is like in God we trust on the dollar bill, right? No one really thinks of it as religious, right? It's just a tradition, right? That was the debate there. The majority said, no, this is state-sponsored religion. It violates the Establishment Clause, right? What about Santa Fe Independent School District versus Doe? 2000, very recent case. Robert.
A group of football people had a majority vote if they wanted to have prayer before a game.
Right.
And the majority said they wanted to have prayer, and the school said they couldn't.
They couldn't?
Yeah, the school said they couldn't.
The school said they could, right? Right, exactly, right. Good, perfect, right? So the idea is that even when the students themselves decide they want to pray, even when the students, a majority of them say, let's get together and have a prayer outside of school before a football game, right? And let's have students lead that prayer, the court says that still violates the Establishment Clause, right? Even though it's extracurricular, even though it's student-initiated, that is still a violation, that is still state-sponsored as far as the Supreme Court was concerned, right? It's still the school sponsoring religious speech, and it violates the Establishment Clause, right? So these are the 3 big cases that I want you to know for church and state. Engel, Weissman, Santa Fe, right? And remember, the idea is that the court has really put some strong teeth behind the Establishment Clause, right? It's, they've applied this Lemon test, and they found that, they've taken a really hostile stance towards any kind of religious activity in schools. That's the important point here, right? And that's it. That's our review. We're going to get into questions now. That's Church and State. That's the end of the review lecture. I know that was long. I know it was tedious. But I think it was important just so you guys have a sense that if there's anything in this lecture that was unfamiliar, anything in this lecture that you felt like you didn't remember very well, now you know to review that in your studies. I'm going to shut this camera off. But let's take questions right now.